My name is James, and I never thought I'd be writing this post. I guess we all have a breaking point. Before all this happened, I thought my life was on the right track. I had been married to my wife, Kate, for about 5 years. We met in college, and at the time, she was everything I thought I wanted. She was beautiful, funny, and we had what seemed like a solid connection. Our early years together were nothing short of blissful, or so I thought. We lived in a small house in the suburbs, the kind of place that felt like the American dream. I had a decent job in tech, and Kate was working as a marketing manager. Life was comfortable, steady, and predictable. The kind of life people often envy. But lately, things had started to feel off. It started with small things. Kate being a little distant, spending more time at work, and getting home late. I tried to brush it off at first. Maybe she was just busy. After all, we all go through phases where work takes priority. But then I started noticing other things. She'd become a lot more secretive with her phone, always changing the subject when I asked about her day. At first, I convinced myself that it was nothing. Everyone gets busy, right? But there was something else. I could feel it in my gut. There were nights when she'd come home smelling different, like perfume I didn't recognize. She'd brush it off as nothing, saying she had gone out with friends after work. Friends. But I could never remember her mentioning any of them before. It was like she had a whole new life I wasn't a part of. I started staying up later than usual, hoping to catch some of the details. I knew it was unhealthy, but something in me couldn't let it go. I just needed to know if I was being paranoid, or if my suspicions were right. The day I found out the truth started like any other. But little did I know, it was about to unravel everything. The tipping point came at a New Year's party that we were both invited to. I wasn't thrilled about it, to be honest. It was one of those corporate gatherings, full of people I barely knew, but Kate insisted we go. "It'll be fun," she said. "You'll see some old colleagues. I'll see my friends, and we'll have a good time." When we arrived, Kate seemed unusually excited. She was acting like she was at a high school reunion, greeting people like they were long-lost friends. I tried to play along, but my mind was elsewhere. I had noticed her being distant for the past few weeks, and something in my gut was telling me I needed to pay attention tonight. I told myself that I was being paranoid. That night, everything seemed normal. But then, things started to take a weird turn. Kate was talking to this guy, let's call him Ryan. He was one of her colleagues from her marketing team. At first, it was just casual, laughing, joking, and a bit too much close contact for my liking, but I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. But then I saw something that I can't get out of my head. It happened on the dance floor. I was standing by the side, holding a drink, watching people spin and sway to the music. I looked over, and there they were, Kate and Ryan, dancing. And I swear, it was like everything else around me stopped. Kate was smiling at him in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't just a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile she used to give me when we first started dating. That smile that said, "I'm into you." And then, Ryan's hand slid down her back, and I saw it. His hand was under her skirt. The image burned itself into my mind, and I could barely breathe. It wasn't just some accidental touch. He was slipping his hand further, moving with a slow, deliberate motion that made my blood run cold. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart sank, and all the lies I had been telling myself, about her being busy with work, about her needing space, about everything, shattered in that one moment. The worst part? Kate didn't even seem to care. She wasn't pushing him away, she wasn't pulling back. Instead, she seemed to be enjoying it. I felt my face burn with anger, and my mind went into a frenzy. I didn't know whether to approach them, to confront her right there, or to walk away and pretend I didn't see it. But I knew deep down that nothing could erase what I had just witnessed. That was when I realized the truth. I had been living in a lie, and Kate wasn't the woman I thought she was. I don't remember how much time passed after that moment on the dance floor. I was dizzy with anger, heartache, and confusion. I could hear the music around me, but it felt distant, like I was underwater. Every part of me wanted to storm over to them, grab Kate by the arm, and scream at her, "What the hell are you doing?" But something held me back. I left the dance floor quietly, pretending to head to the bathroom. I needed to get my bearings, think this through. I couldn't believe that Kate, the woman I trusted with everything, could do this to me. But then again, in my gut, I knew. I knew the signs had been there all along. I just chose to ignore them. I spent a few minutes in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face to clear my head. When I walked back to the party, I immediately saw Kate and Ryan again. They were standing by the bar now, laughing. But this time, it wasn't innocent. Kate was leaning in a little too close to Ryan, and the way he was looking at her, it was obvious what they had been doing. That's when I snapped. I walked straight up to them, my feet almost carrying me of their own accord. Kate looked at me with a faint, surprised expression, but Ryan didn't seem caught off guard at all. As soon as I stood in front of them, Kate's face twisted into something cold, almost smug, as if she knew exactly what I had seen. And Ryan, he just gave me this arrogant smirk, like he knew he was in control. "James," Kate said, her voice too sweet, like she was trying to play it cool. "What are you doing here? I thought you were enjoying the party." I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Are you really going to pretend like I didn't see what was going on?" I hissed, my voice low and trembling with rage. "You and Ryan under her skirt. Kate? Really?" She froze for a second, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by an almost mockingly pitying look. "James," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You really don't get it, do you? I'm bored. I'm tired of pretending that everything is perfect with you. This," she gestured vaguely between the two of us, "this is what I need. Ryan gives me what you can't." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Her words hit harder than any physical blow could. She didn't even try to hide it. She was telling me she was cheating, like it was nothing. It wasn't a mistake or a slip-up. No, she had planned this. I turned to Ryan, my eyes narrowing. "And you? Are you proud of yourself? Sleeping with your boss's wife at a company party?" Ryan just shrugged, his face still that smug mask. "She wanted it," he said, like it was no big deal. "Can't blame me for taking what's offered." I wanted to punch him right then, but I held back. My hands were shaking, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely out of control. But I couldn't let her see me break. I wouldn't let her have the satisfaction. "You're disgusting," I muttered under my breath. I turned on my heel and walked out of the party. I don't know how I managed to drive home that night. My head was spinning, my hands were still shaking, and my heart felt like it was being ripped out of my chest. I was angry, but there was this overwhelming sadness that seemed to drown everything else. I had trusted Kate with my life. She had been my everything, and now I was faced with the truth that she wasn't even close to being the person I thought she was. The house was too quiet when I walked in. It felt suffocating. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be anywhere. I just wanted to disappear. I had so many questions swirling in my mind. Why had she done this? How long had it been going on? Was Ryan the only one, or was there more? The uncertainty was unbearable. It gnawed at me, making my stomach churn. I stood in the living room for a while, just staring at the walls. The silence was deafening. I couldn't escape the memories of everything that had led up to this. Those little signs I had ignored, the moments where I had doubted myself but pushed it aside, telling myself I was just being paranoid. I felt stupid, foolish, like I had been played for a fool. Then, around 2 a.m., Kate came home. She walked in like nothing had happened. Her makeup still perfect, her hair still styled. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She looked at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. "James, why are you sitting here all moody? We're supposed to have a good night, remember? What's your problem?" I stood up, my fists clenching. I had to hold myself back from screaming at her. "You really think I'm going to just pretend like nothing happened?" My voice was shaking, barely holding back the tears. "You cheated on me, Kate. I saw everything. I know what you did with Ryan." Her face twisted into that cold, condescending mask again. "Oh, please," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. You're acting like such a child. It's not a big deal. Ryan's just more fun than you are. You haven't even noticed that we've been growing apart for a while now. I tried to talk to you about it, but you were too busy with your precious work to even care. It's not like I'm asking for anything serious with him. Just some excitement. You wouldn't understand. The words felt like a slap to the face. She wasn't even sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't even pretending to be. She was just cold. Like it was all some game to her, and I was the fool who couldn't keep up. I don't care if you don't take this seriously, I said, my voice steady now, though it hurt to even speak. But I know what you're doing, and I'm done being your doormat. I turned away from her, my chest tight with emotion. I needed air. I needed to escape. I left the house and drove aimlessly for a while, the cold night air helping to clear my mind. But nothing could ease the pain of what I had just learned. I was married to a woman who didn't even respect me enough to try to hide her betrayal. And the worst part? I had spent years building a life with her, thinking that we had something real. But now everything felt hollow. The weight of the betrayal was suffocating, and I wasn't sure how I could ever recover from it. I knew one thing for sure, though. This wasn't something I could just ignore. I couldn't pretend like nothing had changed. Kate had crossed a line, and I had to make a choice about what came next. I spent the next few days in a blur, barely able to think straight. Kate went on as if nothing had happened, getting ready for work, leaving for the office, all while I was left at home, trying to process the mess she had made of our lives. Every time I looked at her, I was filled with a deep, searing anger that I couldn't fully express. I wanted to scream, to tear everything down, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. I needed to make a decision, and I needed to do it without letting the emotion cloud my judgment. I tried talking to friends, but honestly, I didn't feel like anyone could understand what I was going through. Some said I should just walk away. Others suggested that maybe it was a one-time thing and I should give her another chance. But none of their advice felt right to me. I couldn't decide whether I was just too angry to think clearly or if I really didn't want to face the fact that my marriage might be over. On the third day, Kate came home late again, and this time I was ready to confront her once and for all. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to just sit back and let her walk all over me anymore. The betrayal was too deep. But I wasn't about to let her think she could get away with this without facing some consequences. When she walked through the door, I stood up. She didn't look surprised to see me, though I could see a flash of annoyance in her eyes. She probably thought she'd be able to brush me off again, but I wasn't in the mood to play nice. I want a divorce, Kate, I said, keeping my voice calm, though it felt like I was tearing myself apart inside. I'm done. I can't be with someone who disrespects me this way. You've made it clear that I'm not enough for you. So, I'm out. She laughed. Oh, please, James. This is just typical. You always overreact. It's not like I've been going behind your back every single day. Ryan was just some fun. You're acting like I've ruined your entire life, but really, you've just gotten too boring for me. Maybe if you had put more effort into us instead of your job, we wouldn't be in this situation. I was stunned. She was so cold, so dismissive. She wasn't even pretending to be sorry. If anything, she seemed annoyed that I was making this such a big deal. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice shaking. You think this is just a game? You think I'm going to just let you walk away from this without facing any consequences? Kate narrowed her eyes, almost as if she was sizing me up. What, are you going to get petty and make me regret it? You can't do anything to me, James. You never have. That's when something in me snapped. I had been holding back all this time, trying to be the calm, rational one. But I was done. Done with her lies. Done with the way she treated me like I was the one who had done something wrong. I knew I wasn't going to get any sense of remorse from her, but I could at least get some closure in my own way. I turned to leave the room, then paused. You know, Kate, I said, my voice low and steady, I think you deserve to know just how much I don't care anymore. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to take what's mine, and you can keep whatever's left. But don't think for a second that I'm ever coming back to you. I'll make sure you remember this every day. I left the room, leaving her standing there with a stunned expression on her face. For once, she wasn't in control. I don't know if I can truly describe the sense of calm that washed over me once I made the decision to move forward with the divorce. The anger was still there, but it felt more like a distant hum rather than a roaring fire. What I realized in that moment was that Kate had been taking me for granted for so long. I had lost sight of who I was. The man I was now, the one who had seen through her lies and stood up for himself, wasn't going to let her walk all over him anymore. Kate, of course, wasn't having any of it. She tried everything to convince me to stay. She begged, she cried, and when that didn't work, she even tried to manipulate me. She'd tell me how much I meant to her, how I was the only one who truly understood her. But it was all just empty words. I could see right through her now. She had used me for years, emotionally, financially, and now even physically with Ryan. She wasn't interested in saving the marriage. She was just trying to keep things as they were because she knew that if I left, she would lose all her comfortable stability. It was time to take control, and I wasn't going to play by her rules anymore. I had already started the paperwork for the divorce, but that was just the beginning. I knew that Kate loved her image, and she had worked hard to keep up appearances. She wanted to be seen as the successful, independent woman, the one everyone admired. I decided to make sure she wouldn't forget how she had treated me, and how quickly that could all fall apart. I made a few calls to her closest friends, people I knew she trusted, and filled them in on what had been happening. I didn't leave out a single detail. I made sure they knew exactly who Kate was and how she had treated me. It was brutal. It was real. It wasn't about getting revenge on a whim. It was about holding her accountable for the emotional toll she had put me through for so long. I also made sure to contact a few of her work colleagues, including Ryan. I didn't go into the personal details, but I didn't have to. The truth was that Kate had been spreading rumors about how she wasn't getting what she wanted at home and how boring our marriage had become. She had been using that as a way to justify her actions with Ryan. I didn't need to stoop to her level, but I made sure she would realize that her dirty little secret wasn't going to stay hidden anymore. The real icing on the cake came a week later. I had moved out, settled into an apartment, and was adjusting to life without her. I wasn't thinking about her, but then I received a call from my lawyer. Kate had contacted him, asking if there was any way she could reverse the divorce or make it easier on her. She was panicking. It was clear from the conversation that she didn't want things to end this way. She had no control over the situation anymore. I didn't respond to her directly, but I didn't need to. By the time I was finished, she had lost a good portion of her social circle. Ryan, the man she had been sleeping with, was no longer the exciting escape from her boring life. His feelings for her seemed to vanish as quickly as they had appeared, and he distanced himself. She was left alone, with nothing but the cold reality of the choices she had made. But the real blow came when she tried to salvage what little reputation she had left. I got a text from her one night. "James, please. I was wrong.
I'm sorry.
I want us to work it out. Can we just forget all of this happened?" I didn't even bother to respond. There was nothing to say. There was no going back. Kate had taken something sacred between us, and now she was paying the price for it. I had lost the woman I thought I would grow old with, but in a way I had gained so much more. The man I had become, strong, resolute, and unapologetic, was someone I could respect. As the weeks passed, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. At first, it was overwhelming. I didn't know how to navigate the silence, the absence of Kate's presence. But then, slowly, I began to rebuild my life in ways I hadn't thought possible. I didn't need her anymore. I didn't need her validation or her excuses, and I didn't need to apologize for standing up for myself. There were moments of doubt, of course. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, thinking about everything I'd lost. I wondered if I'd made the right decision. But every time those thoughts crept in, I'd remind myself of the reasons why I left. I remembered the way Kate had looked at me that night, when she wasn't even sorry for what she had done. I thought about the way she had so easily discarded me in favor of a quick fling, all while lying to my face for months. And then there were the moments where I realized how much I had been holding myself back, trying to make things work with someone who clearly didn't value me. It was freeing to realize I was no longer tethered to her toxic behavior. I had always been the one bending over backward to please her, to make her happy, to ignore her flaws because I didn't want to face the reality of what was happening. Now that I was free, I could finally breathe again. I spent time focusing on myself. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. I started going to the gym, something I had abandoned when I was too focused on Kate and her needs. I found hobbies that I had put on the back burner because I had been too busy trying to keep the peace in our marriage. I started to remember who I was before I met her, before she had clouded my judgment and taken up so much of my emotional energy. And slowly, I began to understand that this betrayal didn't define me. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't the fool who had been duped. I was someone who had faced the worst kind of heartbreak, and instead of crumbling, I had picked myself up and moved forward. I had learned how strong I really was. I knew that there would be moments where the hurt would resurface, especially if Kate tried to reach out again. And I knew there would be days when the anger would flare up. But those moments were fewer and fewer. What mattered now was my own healing, my own happiness, and my future. I realized that I didn't need her to be complete. I had always thought that we were supposed to grow together, but in reality we were growing apart. I had to let go of the idea that we were meant to be, that we were supposed to end up together. The truth was, I wasn't the man I had been before. I was stronger now, and I could handle whatever came next. As time went on, I found myself reflecting on everything I had gone through. The betrayal, the anger, the confusion, and ultimately the decision to leave. It wasn't easy, and I don't think I'll ever fully erase the pain of what Kate did to me. But looking back, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the affair itself. It was how much I had allowed myself to believe in the lies, to ignore the red flags, and to let myself become so wrapped up in trying to fix something that wasn't fixable. Kate had been right about one thing. I had been too focused on my job. But what she didn't understand, and what I finally saw clearly, was that I wasn't just neglecting her. I had been neglecting myself for years. I had put her needs ahead of my own, believed in her false promises of change, and convinced myself that if I just worked harder, I could fix the cracks in our relationship. What I didn't realize was that relationships, real relationships, don't work that way. They require two people who are both invested, both willing to put in the effort. Kate wasn't willing to do that. She wasn't even close. The affair, the lies, the betrayal, all of that was just the result of a deeper issue. She had stopped caring about us a long time ago. And while it hurt to admit that, it also set me free. Because once I realized that the marriage had been over long before I ever discovered the truth, it was easier to accept that moving on was the right choice. Through it all, I also learned some valuable lessons about trust, self-worth, and boundaries. Trust is something that, once broken, can never be fully repaired, not in the way it was before. But that doesn't mean it can't be rebuilt with time, with patience, and with the right people. The trick is knowing when to walk away from people who don't deserve your trust in the first place. I learned that I needed to value myself, to stop measuring my worth based on the people around me. I had always thought that love and respect came from external sources, like Kate, like friends, like work. But the truth was, I had to learn to give those things to myself first. I had to remind myself that my happiness wasn't contingent on someone else's approval or loyalty. It was up to me to create my own happiness. As for Kate, she had shown me who she really was. She was the kind of person who used others for her own gain, who saw relationships as a means to an end, and who didn't have the decency to be honest about what she wanted. She had shown me that she didn't respect me, not even a little, and in the end, that was the greatest gift she could have given me, because it pushed me to finally take control of my own life and move forward. I won't pretend that I don't still get angry when I think about what she did, but I don't carry that anger with me anymore. I've let it go, and I've learned that sometimes the best way to get revenge is to walk away, live your life on your own terms, and show the world that you can rise above the crap life throws at you. Looking back now, months later, I can honestly say that I'm in a better place than I ever thought I could be. I've built a new life, one that doesn't revolve around someone who didn't respect me. Kate's betrayal was a wound I thought I'd never recover from, but it's no longer the scar that defines me. I've learned that heartbreak doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the catalyst for growth, for discovering who you are beneath the pain, beneath the lies. When people ask me what advice I'd give to someone in a similar situation, I tell them the same thing I had to learn the hard way. Don't ignore the signs. Trust your instincts, because if something feels off, it probably is. And don't let someone convince you that your feelings don't matter, or that your worth depends on their actions. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you respond. And sometimes the best response is to walk away. For me, revenge wasn't about punishing Kate or trying to make her feel the pain I felt. The real revenge was showing myself that I didn't need her to be happy. I didn't need her to validate me. And I certainly didn't need to stay in a relationship where I was constantly being disrespected. I've learned how to set boundaries, how to prioritize my own happiness, and how to be okay with being alone. In fact, I've come to enjoy my own company in a way I never did when I was with Kate. I've met new people, built better friendships, and even started dating again. This time, with the knowledge that I will never settle for less than I deserve. The last thing I learned? That it's okay to let go of the past. It doesn't mean you forget what happened, but you stop letting it control your future. Kate was a chapter in my life. A painful, shocking, and humiliating chapter, but just a chapter. And now I'm writing my own story, one that's better, stronger, and much more fulfilling than anything I could have imagined before. So to anyone out there going through something similar, know this: you're stronger than you think. You can get through this, and you will come out the other side better for it. Trust yourself, take control, and never let anyone treat you like you're not enough. You are.